So I'm calling this meeting to order of the Stockbridge Planning Board on September 21st. Thank you all for joining. The first item of business is to approve the minutes of our last meeting on September 7th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
The minutes as sent out by Jennifer.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes sent out by Jennifer, not the amendment we got on our.
We'll get to that, Marie.
Okay, I would like to approve.
Nancy, did you second?
Yes,
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend the minutes. And that's the motion that Jennifer sent around earlier. And my feeling is that the minutes should just, have a little bit more of a full accounting of the discussion that took place. I think it was an important discussion. And I think it
Is there
would
a
be.
second?
So Carl just logged on.
Carl, Kate has made a motion to amend the minutes of our last meeting by her write-up that was sent around earlier today. The motion has been made. It hasn't been seconded.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I would like to discuss that.
Please.
I feel that the added detail in these amendments doesn't reflect really what we said, and a lot of it was, if you're going to put it this kind of detail, the other detail was left out. For instance, 620.24.2. Yes, we talked about the selectman being part of this, but others on our committee felt that there were too many people involved at the beginning and we were going to overwhelm these candidates, that the select board would be included later in the process. That wasn't reflected. 6.24.4, when we talk about density divisor and changing it, this is a draft. We never set a density percentage. We've always just asked Jeff to show us what different densities look like. So nothing was changed. This was never voted on by the board. This kind of looks like we've been changing the densities for no reason. And they were never set in stone. Every single meeting we say, this is a draft. This is not what we are voting on. This is something Carl's 6.24.5. Carl's saying it looks like something taken from another town. It is. It is a draft bylaw that Jeff has sent us to look at to see what these bylaws look like. And our job is to change the wording to make it our own. We have not voted on any of that yet. So yeah, it does look like it came from another town. He wrote it for somebody else. We're going to make it our own. 6.24.6. Lot size, minimum lot size. We talked about the fact that lot size is determined by the water and sewer and terrain. If we have different types of housing, co-housing, then the lot sizes are different. So we don't have a minimum lot size because it depends on the specific project or land that somebody is wanting to do something with.
So Marie, if I may.
Hang on, Kate, let her finish.
Let me just say, because this is put in writing, and I think it's reflecting a different thing than what our committee has been talking about. And I think it's in print and people see it. And it's leading to misleading and negativeness about this bylaw before we even get it written. One more thing, 6.24.6. You know, Kate was concerned that residents were going to be surprised and wake up and find a parking lot next to them. That isn't true. Everything is permitted, looked at, more than you ever would want. You know, you can't be surprising the neighbors with a parking lot. They're part of the process. I think these minutes do not really reflect our meeting or anything that we voted on. I understand that you want people to see discussion, but I think Jennifer put it in there and said where they could get the real meeting if they want to listen to the whole thing. And I feel that anyone should be able to, and has the right to, and the duty to correct errors in minutes or real omissions of something that was voted on. I don't feel that members of any board should rewrite minutes to reflect how they saw the meeting unfold.
Okay, may I speak now?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically I was, what I submitted as a motion was what I thought was just a more full accounting of the discussion. And minutes are, reflect the discussion, not, you know, how you feel about the bylaw, or, you know, it's really strictly, it should reflect the discussion. And my feeling was that the minutes should just more fully cover that discussion, and I'll leave it at that. And, you know, I think we should just, this is a difference of opinion, I think we should just move it to a vote.
Well, wait a minute. Let's hear from others.
I just don't feel that the discussion that you wrote completed you wrote one side of all these stories, of all these amendments, and I don't feel that is reflected. And I remember at one point we were telling Jennifer, you know, you write too much. You don't really need to write everything everybody says. And I think it's up to the secretary of the board to write the minutes as she sees them.
It's definitely the role of board members to amend minutes as they see fit. That is definitely the role of board members. And in fact, you know, I included comments that Wayne made that I felt were important to include in the record.
You should.
You know, I included comments from a number of board members.
I didn't say anything
I
about
feel
those
that,
comments.
may I finish, please?
Yes.
I just feel that this was an important discussion, and that it would be helpful just to have that discussion reflected in the minutes.
The fact is that we don't reflect all discussions ever. I mean, the minutes are meant to be summaries. If you want the blow-by-blow description of what went on in the meeting, you go to CTSB and you can watch it as many times as you'd like, and you'll catch every single word that everybody said. I think this is a departure from the way we've operated. I think Jennifer takes good minutes. I think I agree with Marie that these are unbalanced and incomplete, this amendment. And I think it's unnecessary. Does anybody else have a view? Nancy?
I just wanted to say that I think that what Jennifer writes is an accurate representation of what happened. And she puts it right at the bottom of every minute. A full meeting of the planning board can be viewed at ctsbtv.org. Click on government, then Stockbridge, then look for the date of the meeting that you want to listen to. And you can hear every single, like Bill said, every single word that everybody said. And I think that's good enough because Jennifer does a great job.
This is, I'd be very disappointed to have this turned into a reflection on Jennifer, because it is not that. And I think Jennifer knows that's not.
Nobody said anything about Jennifer's bad work. We think
Could I finish,
Jennifer
please?
does a great work.
Could I
Well,
finish, please?
this
I'd
is
just
not a
like to say
reflection
that-
on Jennifer. Let's get that clear.
Okay,
Right.
I'm glad we agree on that. That's good. I would just say that open meeting law does indicate that the minutes should reflect the discussion of the board. And generally speaking, I think that's a good idea, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but the fact is that most of our minutes are a page and a half long. And when we meet for 2 hours, if we took every word down, the minutes would be 15 pages long of small spaces, small type on both sides of the page. We don't operate that way.
It's an important discussion, and I, submitted like a page and a half. I don't think that's a big deal, but why don't we just I call the vote?
I want to hear from anybody else who has a view on this. Gary, Wayne, Carl?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, I think we're all agreed, that Jennifer does a great job, and I really appreciate what she does. And but I read the draft proposal, and as far as I could tell, it seemed like a pretty accurate representation of sort of slightly enlarged version of our discussion.
Gary? You're muted. You're muted.
Yep, I got it. So I'm all for short minutes. I've said this before, and I've said it ever since I've been on the board. I think that Jen does a great job of, we're looking for the essence of the meeting. This is how I look at minutes. It's the essence of the meeting. If somebody wants something more, they can listen to CTSB, or if there's, I don't think we record it anymore because CTSB does it, but should we not have CTSB and we go back to the recorded tape, they can listen to that. But for me, I think that the minutes should be basically bullet points about what happened at the meeting, but not necessarily long discussions and what he said or they said or all that. I think, he can say things like, something was discussed and maybe there's a conclusion to it, but I don't think we have to have all the give and take in there because it's just too much.
Wayne, do you know what we're talking about? I thought I saw him.
Yeah, he was there.
He may not have turned on his sound or something.
Yeah, he's there. I can see him.
You can? You can see
I
him?
can, I can see his name.
Yeah. And it looks like his mic isn't turned off. Wayne, are you there? He may be having connection problems. Now his mic is turned off. Wayne, are you there? Okay, let's proceed to a vote. The motion to amend the minutes in the form of Kate's proposal has been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. Jennifer, will you call the roll, please?
Bill,
No.
Marie,
No,
Nancy,
No,
Gary,
No,
Wayne, Kate,
Aye.
Carl,
Did we get an answer from Wayne, or is he still not?
should we
Well, the
call him on
motion-
the phone? Should we do a phone conference with him? A
Well,
phone
the
call
motion
so we
the
can-
motion has failed, so we're going to
Yeah,
move on.
that's okay.
Hey, your agenda said this was an in-person meeting.
Did?
oh, it did.
Yes. And also the link is not
Did not.
clickable, just so you know.
Yeah, we talked about that, Patrick. We're going to
Okay.
fix that next time.
Okay. Just saying, okay, well, it's up to you.
I mean, the agenda says join
The
Zoom.
first line, it says in-person meeting.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we were told at our last meeting by, I think, Michael Canales via Jennifer that we were not able to have an in-person meeting because we couldn't spread out enough and still be
All right.
covered by CTSB.
Well, I'll hang out here for a few minutes and tell people to log in if they come. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the sign permit for Berkshire Country Day School. Somebody's here from, yeah, Courtney McDonald.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi.
Are you going to speak to this, please?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm not an employee of the school. I'm a volunteer graphic designer that's taken on this project. So I am here representing them. I apologize for missing the last meeting. I know I was on that agenda as well.
No problem.
So we are looking to, when I say we, meaning BCD, are looking to replace the existing sign. Jennifer, is it okay if I share my screen?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I'm hoping that you're seeing the permit that I sent into you guys, the application for the permit. And I know you guys have had this. So basically we're looking to replace the existing sign. The current sign is 5 square feet. And we're looking to replace it with actually exactly the same sign. And then we'd like to add a changeable messaging sign to hang below it from the same posts. So it is mounted on 2 4x4 wooden posts, 7 feet high. The primary sign would be 5 square feet. The changeable sign would be 2 square feet. So a total of 7. The primary building on the property is 226 feet from the road. And then the sign is 14.5 feet from the road and 18 feet from the driveway. The proposed sign, I should say, is that. So the next drawing you see is the drawing made by our sign manufacturer to indicate the sign itself. The sign that you see, minus the interchangeable sign, is pretty much exactly the same sign we have now. 7 feet high, 4x4 wooden posts. It's made of wood. It's 30 inches by 24. You can see we'd like to have these interchangeable signs that hang below it that would indicate things like an open house or, you know, what the school actually is. I think a lot of people don't know necessarily what it is. So 2-year-olds through 8th grade, that kind of a thing. The whole system that you see is double-sided. The next drawing is, and just stop me at any time or I'm sure you'll have questions at the end, but the next drawing is the site map of the school. And the asterisk there is the location of the sign. And then you can see that where the buildings start set back from the road. This next picture is the existing sign, the current sign that we have. And then I have another sign, another picture here that I didn't submit, but I thought might be helpful just for context. I'm sure you all are very familiar with it, but it's just another picture of the road and of the existing sign. But as I read your zoning, we are in R2. The school is in R2, let's see. Obviously, we need a permit for a permanent sign. That's what we're applying for. And then the letter I says for any non-residential principal use, 1 sign not to exceed 4 square feet in area. If the principal building is located 30 feet or more from the street on which the lot has fronted, 1 additional sign not to exceed 4 square feet in area may be displayed at an entrance to the lot. So what we're asking for in our application is to not put up that second sign on a separate post, but to put a second sign on the same post. And I know you guys don't grandfather signs in, so our 5 square feet is not grandfathered as 5 square feet, but that we might argue that as a total, we have 7 square feet when we could have 8, and we have 1 signpost instead of 2. So that's where we're hoping to keep the 5 square feet and to add the 2 square foot interchangeable. And that's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are there questions or comments for Courtney on this application from the board?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know the sign bylaw is complex and contentious, but I mean, I see absolutely nothing wrong with this proposal.
Other comments, questions?
I mean, to me, it looks harmless. There is that issue of grandfathering, but Jennifer, you mentioned that Mike has looked at this, and can you relay what he said?
Well, Courtney, the 2 smaller signs that you want to hang off,
Yeah.
the town administrator said they would be considered temporary signs,
Oh, okay.
and that when you want to hang them, you should go to the selectmen for the temporaries for hanging those. So that would be a little bit separate.
Okay, so Jennifer, we were actually thinking that at all times there would be one hanging there. So this one that I have here, the 2-year-olds through 8th grade, that would hang at all times, unless we were having an event like an open house, and then we would swap it out for the open house sign, or for if there was, you know, whatever else there might be. But that actually the 2-year-olds through 8th grade, I mean, I certainly understand if it is a temporary sign, we will go through that route, but just to make sure that we were clear in what we were hoping for is to actually hang it at all times. There would be something hanging there. It just would change if there was an event.
Jennifer, what about the refurbishing part? Can you relay what Mike said about that?
That she could refurbish it.
Sorry?
I mean, he said that, see, I didn't know you were gonna leave that. So, I mean, to have another sign there, that's up to the planning board to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're hoping, but if you said actually no, no, you can hang it as an event, and then you ask as a temporary sign, then we would just go through that. But our hope was to have something there at all times, and we would just swap it out if there was, depending on the message.
Does that make it a permanent sign?
What did
Seems
we
like.
do when the library asked for the hanging sign? Or, the library had a sign, and then they had the hanging with their activities or something. And and how did we word that?
I don't think that we let them hang it. I think we had them put another sign on Elm Street instead of on the main street. So that's what they did.
I think Gary's got something to add.
Oh, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we, for the library, didn't we consider those, because they did it in a plexiglass and they moved them in and out. Didn't we consider those directional and informational, and that's how we got through that?
I don't remember that.
But this sounds like it would be informational as well, not directional, but certainly informational.
Yeah.
What Courtney has described. And I'll bet that the library doesn't go to the select board every time they change that.
Well, no, because
hanging sign.
we permitted it. We permitted it under, I believe, directional and informational information.
Is that a route to go here, Gary, do you think?
Well, I think it's another way to skin the cat, yeah.
I mean, I think the bigger question is, since I've been told that there is no grandfathering, you know, how that works here, you know, to be fair to other applicants who have.
Well, didn't we just do this with the camp?
Yes,
Yeah, but that was under the misunderstanding that there's grandfathering. So there's two different issues. There's, I mean, you know, look, this is a, our sign bylaw needs work. I see nothing wrong with this sign as a sign. It's just our sign bylaw is problematic.
so the sign that
I
you're,
look at it that if it's not gonna change, and since we're not arbiters on what goes on it, if they're gonna just refurbish it, then I think we're fine.
that was my question too.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
That's grandfather.
I think that what Mike had told me was that there is no grandfathering, but then Jennifer mentioned to me that he used the word refurbishing. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And
Yeah,
also,
I mean,
Hand up.
for me, if the sign didn't get bigger and it's just being refurbished,
right.
then I say that's okay. And then if they want if they wanted to have directional, you know, a directional sign, as long as it met the criteria, then I think that would be all right.
I think Patrick has his hand up, Bill.
yes, go ahead, Patrick.
I just feel like you could get that down to 4 square feet. You only have to shave 3 inches off the top or the horizontal and 3 inches off the vertical. And I just think we should hesitate before we justify as board members overriding, you know, clear instructions in our bylaws.
But what about that's an interesting point, Patrick, but what about the argument that the applicant makes that they're entitled to 2 signs and they're 2 big signs and they're only putting up 1 that in fact would cover less square footage than if they put up 2 signs of 4 square feet each.
I don't know. That's really your guys' call, obviously. I just feel like I hesitate to give governments powers to override their laws.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would characterize this as overriding the,
Well, it's kind of, we've actually, it's an interesting point that Courtney makes, because we've never interpreted that section this way, but I could see how you would. Do you want me to share the wording so everyone can see it?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Courtney, can you stop your share, please?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's 6.8.7 I. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
We've definitely interpreted it differently, as, you know, the principal building having a sign. And then in this case, that would be the old main house of BCD, of the farm, Shadowbrook Farm. And then they would have an additional sign at the roadside. This came up with DeSisto, and we interpreted as that they could have 2 4 square feet signs at either end of their driveways. So this is sort of an interpretation that I had not thought of, but I can see it.
Yeah, there's kind of not much point to putting a sign on the building. Particularly if
Right.
it's only 4 square feet, it wouldn't be legible hardly legible from the road, and it would be unnecessary because the sign on the road is so visible.
yeah, and we don't have, there's nothing else that we would want to advertise within the school, you know what I mean? It's not as though the school has 2 uses or anything, so What we would really like to do is use that for events or for or that kind of thing. We'd like to use the extra square footage for that, and we would we'd rather not put up a second set of posts. I think that, you know, there's one driveway into the school, and we'd like it just to be simple and all in one post, set of posts, you know, 2 posts for the main sign.
I don't know whether we're gaming the system to approve this on the basis that Courtney first described, that is that she's entitled under this section of the bylaw to 2 signs, and she only wants to use one that would be smaller in dimensions than the 2 combined. But I think if we made that point clear in the minutes, I don't know that we're running roughshod over the bylaw.
Courtney, are you familiar with the illumination standards?
Yes, and the current sign is illuminated. And I'm so sorry that the drawing doesn't reflect that. It would be the same, you know, it's a simple downlight. The current one is still working, but it's quite broken. So it would be very similar downlight. I am familiar, I have read the illumination.
Okay. I would
Yeah, it's
make sure that you meet those standards.
yes, for sure.
That's an environmental concern as well.
Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah, and 6.8.5. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Do we want to proceed to a vote to approve with conditions like the one I just described or with the, not a condition, but an understanding that this application involves less square footage than the 2 signs that this applicant would be permitted to have if the applicant put up the second sign. I think we have to include that in the minutes for the record. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve it on that basis, or is there any other way to address this? Anybody have problems with that approach?
I'd move to approve the sign.
I'll second.
Okay.
With the conditions, Bill, with the explanation that Bill put in there.
Yeah, Jennifer, you have that?
Illumination considerations, yes.
Right. You have it, Jennifer, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If there are no further comments, would you please call the roll?
Bill,
Yes.
Marie,
Yes.
Nancy,
Aye.
Mary,
Yes.
Kate,
Aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Courtney.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Next item is the Form A for, I think it's 11 Train Hill, right?
Well,
12.
well,
I got confused whether it was 11 or
that's
12.
okay. We went through all sorts of numbers, but it's 12.
Okay. And somebody is here to talk about that. Is that Mark?
Yep,
Is that
that
you?
would be me.
Okay,
Yep,
please go ahead.
yep, absolutely. Yep. Hi, Mark Reynolds. I'm here from Kelly Granger and Parsons, and I'm representing Eileen Bliss. And she currently has about 1.5 acres of property that fronts on Averick Road and Train Hill Road. If you look at the assessor maps there now, there's actually 2 lots. One has a residence on it, and the
Excuse me,
other one is a
Can you
vacant
share
lot.
this out?
Can you share this?
Share
Can
the
you put this
document?
on the screen?
Oh, I don't actually have an electronic copy. I thought you guys would have prints with the Mylar that we sent in.
Well, we have very tiny plans that are hard to read, you know, this size. We don't all have access to the Mylar.
I'll share it out.
Okay, well, I'm not at the office and I don't
Oh, okay.
have an electronic
Good.
copy of it right now.
I just brought it
There
up.
you go. Okay,
Can everyone
yeah,
see that?
great, thank you.
Kate.
Yes, yes,
Thank
thank you,
you,
Thanks,
Kate.
Kate.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. So anyways, basically what we're doing is, existing right now, there's a vacant lot that is non-conforming due to acreage for the R1 district. It's just shy of the area for about 9/10, or by about 1/10 of an acre. I think it's about 9/10 of an acre currently. So what we've done is just rearrange the lot lines around the house so that we can make the vacant lot zoning compliant for the R1 district. And as you can see, the lot width for lot 1 meets all their frontage requirements for the R1 district, as well as the frontage and the area. And I've got the requirements off to the left-hand side of the parcels. And the lot 2, as far as for the RC district goes, it has about 4,000 more square feet than is needed for that area. It's got plenty of lot width. It's got enough frontage and exceeds the front yard setback, rear yard setbacks, the side and rear by over 10 feet. It's exceeding it. So at the end of the day, this would now, both lots are going to be zoning compliant, whereas right now, the vacant lot is not.
And wait a second, I'm confused. Is this R1 or RC?
If you can pull the screen down a little bit, the zoning district line, if you pull it down a little more.
Oh, I see.
Right
Okay,
above the bearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the RC district, yeah, there you go. So you can see that line there. That's based 200 feet off the center of Train Hill Road.
So part of lot 1 ends up being in the R1, and then now you've made it 1 acre. Okay.
And yeah.
And the other
and R1 district. Yeah, and the R1 district has the strictest requirements, and lot 1 meets all of the R1 requirements for that district.
So lot 1's frontage is on Averick Road and lot 2's frontage is on Train Hill Road. Is that correct? Is that what I said?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So they both fit the bill. It works.
And is the plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
And is the plan to put this lot up for sale?
I believe they are. They're planning to build on it. I'm not sure if there's a buyer involved, but I know the plan is for someone to put a house up there. I'm not exactly sure if it's to be sold or not, but it wants to be. They want to develop it.
Mm-hmm.
So lot 1, somebody said fronts on Averick. Does
Mhm.
it not also front on Train
It's-
Hill?
Not enough space.
It has a little, it has some frontage on Train Hill, but not enough legal frontage. It's
What-
got,
Was that 91.8 feet or something?
yeah, it's got, 91.6 feet on Train
Okay.
Hill, but it's
Okay,
got 249.72 on Averick.
okay, I got it.
So could you go through for me? So is the frontage for lot 1 going to be on Averick Road or Train Hill Road?
Correct.
Which?
On Averick. Well, I mean, technically there is frontage on both, but the legal lot frontage to make it a zoning compliant lot will be off of Averick Road. You
And-
need,
And the frontage, what is the frontage there?
there's 249.72 feet of lot frontage. on Averick Road and 175 feet of lot width.
Of lot what?
Width.
Yeah. At the front setback line, the lot width is 175 feet.
But you're carving out 249.72 on Averick Road?
Yep, that's gonna be all lot frontage for lot one, correct?
And what is the frontage going to be on Train Hill Road?
Train Hill Road is just a little bit over 125 feet. It's gonna be the 96.68 plus the 28.40.
It's the little triangle with the slash.
Could I just finish, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he answered.
And then could you, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Is it David?
Mark Reynolds.
Mark, I'm sorry. Could you review the frontage of lot 2 for me? That will just be on Train Hill Road, correctly? Correct?
Yep. So you've got, right where the cursor is, you've got the 28.40 feet. And then you're gonna also add the 96.68 feet. So it's gonna be a little over 125 feet of frontage.
And what about that area subject to rights of the public? That triangle?
Yeah, there's a small portion of Train Hill Road that actually encroaches onto the Bliss's property. And there was a deeded right that the Blisses gave the town in that book and page for public use to use that portion of the roadway, even though it is on their property.
So are you counting the lot line here as, can you see my cursor?
Yep.
So you're counting it as including that public area?
Exactly, because that is part of the Bliss's property, subject to the use of the general public. So they own that property and they've given the public the right to continue driving, walking over that piece of property.
Okay, thank you. And what about
Yep.
In terms of the lot 2, the requirements for side and rear and front setbacks?
15 feet. Yep, 15 feet for side and rear. And you can see we have 22, 25, 24 at the closest points. And the front yard setback is at 30 feet where the lot width is measured. And we've got that marked out with a dotted line where the lot width is listed as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments about this application? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. Let's proceed to vote. Jennifer, would you please call the roll? Oh, actually, I suppose we need a motion.
Yeah.
We need a motion to approve this, or again, what's the proper language? It's not really approving.
Is it a Form A?
Yeah,
Form A, right?
it is. So the motion is to acknowledge that planning board approval is not required of this, for this application. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have to state why? It
I think you want
meets
to
our
say something along the
requirements?
lines of that it's not required, approval not required as a subdivision.
Yes, okay,
Under subdivision, division regulations.
right, okay. Um, Is there a second?
I think
Second.
Marie.
Marie already did.
Jennifer, you
So-
got that?
Yep, Bill,
Yes.
Marie.
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Wayne,
I'm going to recuse myself on this one.
okay, Kate,
Aye.
Carl,
Aye.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, how are we gonna, how will we get the Mylar, or how soon do you expect it to be signed?
Well, I'm going to ask people to come into the town offices and sign. So I will call them when it's ready. I'll call you or
Okay,
Dee.
so you'll notify our office when it's signed
Yep.
and ready to be picked up then.
Yep,
Great. Okay, thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Jen, are you in the morning?
yes, I am.
I'll be in the morning to sign it.
Great, thank you.
I will too. I can too.
Okay,
And me.
I can too.
okay.
A little harder for me.
Yeah, it's
You-
okay.
Are you still somewhere distant, Carl?
I have a job in whatever, outside of Boston.
Oh, I thought,
work
I
5
thought-
days a week, but,
okay.
I mean, whatever. I mean, thank goodness for Zoom, because otherwise I would have no voice in this community. You need to be retired, is what it comes down to. So,
It's so true.
How many do we need to sign? Is it just a quorum?
that'd be good. All right, great.
Okay, the next item we're going to skip and continue, I guess, to use the proper term. This is the reflection on the visits to NRPZ developments that several of us made on September 10th with Jeff Lacy. There are others who are planning to go to visit the same sites. And we have advice that it would be best to leave discussion of the site visits until after that second visit is completed.
Sounds good to me.
Um,
Makes the meeting shorter. Always a
Yeah.
good thing.
I think since there is a second visit, if anybody who hasn't already signed up for one for this second visit wants to, I think it's fair for me to encourage people to do that. It's on a Saturday. It's October 2nd.
There's only room for one more, or it becomes an open meeting law violation.
Yeah, either that or you can't really deliberate if there's more than a quorum, which makes it a little awkward. But
You're not really supposed to deliberate because you get into that.
that's what I said.
Yeah.
You can't deliberate if there's more than if there's a quorum.
Even
I
if there
thought
isn't a
this-
quorum, what Mike said was you really shouldn't be deliberating. That was Mike's comment.
I
Anyway,
thought this didn't fall under the open meeting.
Everything does, Nancy.
we have advice from town council that this is the way we have to go.
Okay, just making it clear. Who's going on the second?
I think it's going to be Kate and me. Did you at least have a good time? Can I ask that?
No,
It
you
was
can't.
extremely informative.
Oh, good.
Yes, it was a worthwhile visit.
Great.
Yep, an eye opener. Yeah.
So we're gonna put that off until a later meeting. The next item is an item that I meant to raise at least one meeting ago, because at a even earlier meeting, we had talked about the advisability of creating a survey of residents of the town with respect to elements of, or the entire bylaw, NHRPZ bylaw. And I think I welcome any comments from anybody as to the advisability of it, although my recollection is that most people felt it was a good idea. I confess that I don't have much to report. I actually have asked Michael a couple of times, and I've failed to follow up with him as to how we would actually create a survey, which is crucial. You don't just slap it together and send it out. It needs to be really almost professionally designed in terms of the questions and the layout. So if everybody thinks it's still a good idea, I will follow up with.
I think now
Michael.
that we're back on Zooming and everybody has to stay away from meetings and stuff, I think a survey is a really good idea. I don't know how else we're going to get information and how the town feels. We can't, you know, Zoom meetings are not the same. I think it's a good idea. Does Berkshire Regional have the capabilities of doing this?
I think they probably have done it for others. I'm assuming so, but I can't confirm that. And I think we've lost, well, no, I see Patrick's phone. He did a survey for housing purposes some months ago. And my recollection is he got a pretty good response. I don't know what kind of help he got from Berkshire Regional Planning Commission or elsewhere, other bodies or people to create that.
It was done under a different grant. It was done by a company that, as part of the municipal preparedness grant that Patrick.
Yeah, Kate's right. It was the MVP grant. They were very helpful. It was Catherine Keeman of BSC Group.
Yeah. Now I remember. Well, I don't think they would be in a position to help us. Maybe I shouldn't dismiss them.
No, I think Berkshire Regional would be great. I'm going to
Yeah.
go back to driving, so I'm going to go mute.
Okay, so I will follow up with Michael and BRPC, yeah. Now, I had invited Jeff Lacey to Zoom in at about this hour to discuss the latest draft number 7, with all the highlighted changes that he produced and that's been distributed and posted on the town's website. But I don't see him. I don't see him on the phone or in Zoom.
No, he's not listed.
No. If you'll give me a minute, let me see if everybody can take a bathroom break and I'll see if I can track him down. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Jeff had the same problem that several other people had getting to that link. So, as you know, in response to the completion of the review of draft number 6, which happened at our last meeting when we went virtually line by line through the document, I passed on all the notes I had of comments, questions, complaints, issues to Jeff in a phone call of an hour and 45 minutes or so. And he turned those comments around in the form of draft number 7, which is on the website and which has highlights in it. It's labeled as draft number 7 and dated September 16th at the bottom. Because I thought if we can review this and further come to some kind of meeting of the minds on these points that were raised at our last meeting or previous meetings, it's actually 2 or 3 meetings that we took to get through draft 6, we could make progress and move forward with this bylaw and produce something that eventually we could vote on as a planning board. And I'm not saying we're not going to do that today, and tonight. We're not going to do it at our next meeting, but I think we can look forward to a point, and maybe this is after the survey we just talked about gets done. So it's not going to happen in a flash, and we do want public input. So with that preamble, you all have the draft 7. And you've seen the comments and the changes in the highlighting. I think it's pretty clear, at least it was to me. I don't know whether you've been able to go through them all, but I thought we'd use some time with Jeff to see if we can come to agreement on a number of the points that were raised at our previous meetings. So with that, Jeff, do you want to say anything in introduction at this point, or how would you like to proceed?
Sure. Yeah, I found the edits pretty easy to make and not contradictory to what the bylaw is all about or what it's trying to accomplish. There was a concern about rewriting a paragraph or 2 that had to do with the amount of control the planning board has over the siting of homes, and you know, that was sort of the drafting assignment that was left to me after our conversation, Bill. But I found it very easy to do. It's really not the siting of homes that we're talking about here. It's the siting of a developable area or more in gross, not particular lots and not particular home sites. That's not really what this is about. So those changes were easy to make. Yeah, I found the edits to be reasonable and not violative of what the purposes of the bylaw are.
Okay.
The yellow highlighting.
The yellow highlighting is just things that I felt needed to be read or drawn attention to. It's not particular. It doesn't particularly make sense. Some of it exists from before, and some of it I added this time. There were just things to read. If you're going to skim it and not really read all of it, read the yellow stuff. And then the language changes were all in red line and strikeout. So there would be a strikeout line through deleted text and underlined new text. I think that stuff is all in a different color, red maybe.
In red, yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, then there are my comments on the right-hand side. And I hope, Bill, you finally got those comments. But anyway, some of them are old comments and some of them are new. And I think if you click on the comment, you can tell whether it's been around for a while or whether I added it newly.
Do we want to go, how would you all like to proceed in looking at this latest draft?
Jeff, do you want to share it out as a first step?
Can you share?
If I'm given permission to share.
Yes, you have it.
Happy to do that. Draft 7. Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Oh, and then there's your comments, yeah.
All right. If I make it bigger on my screen, let's see if it gets bigger on your screen. Oh, is it bigger on your screens?
Yeah, that's good.
Little
Okay.
bit.
Can you make it a bit bigger still?
Let's see.
That's pretty good.
Except yeah, they're
Yeah.
recentered, it works.
That's, I'm out to my maximum.
That's legible.
Okay,
At least it is to me.
okay. Let me see, maybe find some new comments.
The first one is the deletion of forestry
Yeah,
in
yep,
6.24.1, right?
right. So
That came up and-
it just takes out the commercial forestry as a viable agricultural activity. That's very important to some towns out here. If it's not particularly important to Stockbridge, it doesn't need to be there.
So Jeff, one comment I have is that under the purposes, the last line is additionally, they offer many recreational opportunities to town residents. Can you explain to me how that is? Because I don't see anything written in that.
Okay,
And I don't really see how that, if you don't require it, how that will happen.
so I just added a word here. It's a good comment. They may offer many recreational opportunities to town residents. And it all depends on who holds the open land and whether they allow public access. Certainly if the town had it or a state agency, some holders like land trusts require a degree of public access. And yet in other cases, it may not be open to the public. So it's may.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I know one of the examples, we can't really talk about the examples that some folks are going to see shortly and some folks have already seen. One or two of those examples do have public access available to town residents. So that would pertain in those cases, and I think the other two don't. So two do and two don't. So if we go down to applicability, now, this was an interesting one. Again, I don't know how much I can discuss the examples that some of the board has seen and others haven't, but all but one of the four would not be possible if the threshold is like 80 acres or something huge like that. Now, one's 18 acres, one's 41, one's 45, and the other one's over 100. So so this is important. I mean, how much land are you going to allow to be subject to this? And just bear in mind that the principal purpose of this bylaw is to be the alternative to conventional subdivision. So you have to ask yourself, if there's 40 acres or 35 or 50 or 60 or 70, would you rather have that conventionally subdivided into all streets and house lots? Or would you rather subject it to this, which would create a lot of open space? And can easily create open space out of that amount of acres. So I would suggest you think in terms of say 20 to 40 when you're setting a minimum size.
We talked at one of our previous meetings, Jeff, about 60. And actually, I think an earlier draft had 80. We discussed, I don't think we came to agreement, but we discussed maybe that number should be 60, but it seems to me 20 to 40 and your explanation is more appropriate.
You know, from my point of view, I have to say, I mean, the acreage discussion is an important detail, but it does basically answer a question I've been asking for a long time, which is, does this bylaw basically just throw out our existing zoning bylaws? And if you have the threshold at 20 to 40 acres, it starts getting there. I don't know. I mean, other people have more strongly held opinions than I do, but I just don't. I don't see like what's broken about our current system, that we should replace it with something that's quite different. I mean, laudable, but with good goals and so forth. But I don't understand exactly what is driving the train.
Well, I can't see any of you, but I assume that was Carl.
Yes.
Yes.
It is. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I've got your voice is pretty much imprinted here.
Oh, sorry. Oh dear.
That's all right. The 40 acres is not any kind of a new zoning lot size or anything like that. Right. It's just the threshold for which this will apply. And you have to remember that the principal purpose of this is to be the alternative to a conventional subdivision. And a conventional subdivision, I could probably pull up a slide to show you, is nothing.
I know. Right. You don't have to rehash that argument. Okay. But I guess maybe I'm still asking this question. Is like, is a conventional subdivision still permissible under our bylaw? Or does this simply replace it?
This replaces, well, this becomes the zoning for a residential subdivision of a certain acreage or more.
Right.
Whatever that acreage happens to be, wherever you set it. It becomes the zoning that applies to that type of subdivision. It's still a subdivision, but this is the zoning that attaches to it and controls it.
Right, and going on, in the notes here, I mean, the waivers, and I'm thinking like, some of the, excuse me, what is this? What was it? E, developable areas, rural siting. I mean, it just, this is definitely pushing this type of plan, as what the town is proposing. And to rewind, I also kind of question, the first paragraph, 624.1, where it says the town wishes to encourage the use of NHRPZ because it results, in the preservation of contiguous open space. Again, I mean, these are all great goals, but is it really the town? I mean, we haven't voted on this yet.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Carl, of course not. It doesn't become a bylaw until town meeting, and then after it actually even has to go to Boston to be approved as to its language.
Okay, well, so that language would then become relevant. Right?
Yes,
I see. Okay, yeah, I understand.
So would this discussion be better after Kate and Carl have done the site visit with Jeff?
Well, no, we're going through draft 7 here.
I understand that, but when you go on the site visit with Jeff, I think you get a different understanding of what we're thinking and what he's going to show you. I mean, I know we can't talk about it, but we could maybe continue this discussion after you guys have done the site visit. I don't know.
Marie, I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've hashed through all of this so many times, and I don't want to be, spinning.
It might make a difference in how you think.
Further. Pardon?
It might make a difference in how you think after the site visit.
So Jeff, one question I have is there have been several requests for information, one from Wayne and some information from me that I've asked for. Has Wayne received that information? I know I haven't received any information.
What information are you talking about?
So I'll let Wayne speak for himself. But Wayne, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a miracle. I had requested the density neutral plan of sorts that would show what a density neutral in this configuration would look like.
I think I recall making an attempt at those calculations in the hypothetical, perhaps for the Sisto property or for some other hypothetical, and I believe it's in this document somewhere.
Are you looking, Wayne, for a drawing?
He's looking for,
Well, I was, just because I think it's helpful as a visual. I mean, the calculations that you show here with no restricted. But the thing is that we also, under this provision, we take all the protected land away first and then do those calculations, whereas what we're under now, we take the land as a whole, as a gross, and do calculations and then take the protected away from it. It's a big difference.
Yeah, you called that double dipping, I think, Wayne, last meeting. And we're going to get to that because I don't think that's actually the way it works. And that's jumping ahead. But I think you'll find that Jeff has an explanation for those calculations. It's really not, kind of taking a whack at the property and then taking another whack.
Yeah, Bill, I think you and I talked about this during our hour and 45-minute meeting. I seem to remember that you brought this up.
Yeah, I brought it up because Wayne brought it up.
Right. Kate, what was your question or request for information?
I guess I'd be interested to, one concern I have, Jeff, is that you had warned this board about the dangers of a density neutral approach. But I'm still hearing the board talking about density neutral. And so I'm concerned that I would like to know, what you did refer to a town where this bylaw and density neutral became a developer's bonanza. And so I would like to see that, I can go on my own, but I want to see what that looks like because I'm concerned that this is going in that direction. And I know that, the original, we didn't even see the first draft. At least I didn't. Not all board members, we started with the second draft, and I know the state recommends 90% as the conservation, build area. And we've seen those numbers get progressively smaller, starting with the first draft, which was 80 and 60 for the R4 and R2 respectively. The density divisors also have changed. So I guess I'd like to know about that town and, be interested to have a visual on the density neutral as well, just because, Wayne and I are interested for different reasons, obviously, but yeah. And then also, you did this really good presentation. I think it was in the fall of 2020. And it was a great presentation. I'd still love to have a copy of that.
Okay. PowerPoint. I don't want to share information about the town. But the town planner is or was a friend of mine. And it's, you know, I don't mind sharing information about successes. I don't want to share information about failures. And that's what I believe NRPZ with density neutrality is a failure. I don't write them that way. I don't recommend it. Nothing out of my mouth has ever been any different. So Kate, you and I are on the same page. This was never meant to be density neutral, always meant to be density negative. But with enough in it, financially for landowners and developers to make up for that. I mean, what you get out of a development is more than just number of housing units. It has everything to do with the expense of development, the time, the permitting, the amount of road you have to build. That all cuts profits. So if you put in all of that good stuff in here for landowners and developers, and then you don't make it density negative, I think you've created something that's that you're not going to like.
How are you supposed to compare something if you don't hear the other side of the argument? I don't want to just hear the good. I want to hear both so I can make an intelligent decision.
Well, perhaps you should attend the field visit on whenever we're going to do it.
Well, I'm having a really hard time making that happen based on other commitments.
Okay,
But I don't know why you would
Wayne?
not want to give us the other side of that coin.
On the field visits, you don't just see the sites, you talk with the landowners. And their experience with this versus conventional development tells a story.
Jeff, to Wayne's point, Wayne's question about the bad news and the good news, is it possible for you to disguise the place that did density neutral and to create a visual that depicts it?
I might be able to get a graphic like that from the town planner. I would not identify the town or the project or anything else.
Yeah.
You have to take my word for it that it's
We're not talking about any place in particular. We're talking about the theoretical here, you know. Now, does this, how does this relate with, you know, one of my biggest concerns with the way the bylaw stands right now, which is, you know, I mean, not only sort of the waiver aspect, but also, you know, the fact that we're giving away any requirements about setbacks, road frontage. You know, I mean, it seems like, you know, the planning board has historically had, you know, for 50 years has had a kit of tools to control development, and we're giving them away.
You can put them back in if they're
of use.
value to
Okay.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good to know.
But from Wayne's perspective, you start putting stuff like that back in, and you start taking away the efficiencies from landowners and developers.
Right. Well, the fact that my neighbor lives 15 feet away from me is, it makes me happy that he's a nice person. But, you know, I just don't know, you know, it's like, I mean, I worry a little bit about some of the unintended consequences of this.
Okay. Well, don't you live in town, Carl?
I do, very much so. Yes,
And
but
the only reason I know that is because I saw you walking to the last planning board meeting that I attended.
I'm a very close walk to the town hall. It's a
Yeah,
really,
I see, you can't be out in the boonies too far.
it's quite, it's extremely convenient, but I still like Zoom.
So, Jeff, one of the things, I'm sure it was just like an unintended omission, but at the last meeting where we just discussed the draft number 6, there was agreement that in, let me see if I can find it here, section 6.24.2, conservation analysis and planning, or conservation analysis and findings,
Mhm.
that the language prior to filing an application and with preliminary conservation analysis plan in hand, an applicant shall meet with the planning board, et cetera.
No, we can't do that. Jeff, do you want to explain that?
I would simply ask your town attorney whether you can require such a meeting. I don't believe you can.
Legally?
Oh, because it's very strongly encouraged, rather.
Yeah, we can't require it according to,
If
I'm-
your town council says you can do that, I will change that to shall. Quick as a lick.
And you know, I mean, and this is just me talking off the top of my head, but like going down to section C, you know, I worry about the idea of this board under, you know, whatever configuration it may assume, shall study the, shall study the conservation analysis, shall conduct field visits, and shall formally determine which land should be preserved. I mean, obviously that's the intention. But I mean, we are supposed to be a planning board, but I mean, our ability to come up with a plan is, it seems like the crux of the matter,
No, Carl, you're not coming up with a plan, you're reacting to one that's presented to you.
I see. Okay.
and also practically everybody in town gets to be part of this. I mean,
Well, that's for sure.
Look at the laundry list of bodies that are going to be involved in this.
So if we want to,
Jeff, one question I have about that same section Carl is referencing, I mean, I have a similar concern to Carl's, which is it just seems like, based on my experience, that conservation analysis could require multiple and or different expertise. So, you might need somebody who has a background in geosciences. And this just sort of seems like a dumbing down in some ways of something that's intended to be conservation oriented. And I just am not reassured that, actual conservation is going to take place based on this process here outlined in C.
Well, doesn't a person that has
I'd like to hear from Jeff on that. I'm sorry, Wayne. That's a question I
yeah,
have.
I guess so. Go ahead. Hate to add to the conversation.
yeah, well, planning boards do go out, inspect land, review plans, conduct field visits, and make decisions. One thing you can do with this bylaw or a number of others, I believe you have the ability to hire a consultant under Chapter 4453G, the general laws. I think you've adopted that section, and that enables you at the applicant's expense to utilize a consultant that's working for you. It could be a consultant in planning. I serve in that capacity in some towns. It could be civil engineering. It could be wetlands. It could be natural resource analysis. whatever field you feel you're,
You know, so I
what-
understand that, and you have covered that before, but I'm
Right.
just putting this out there on the record, for the record. For all intents and purposes, I have never seen that. I just have never seen that level of interest. So that's a concern for me.
It
level-
doesn't mean that it'll never happen.
No, it doesn't, but we do work with 2 conservation bylaws, and that's the bulk of the work for the planning board.
Jeff, who is certified to develop a conservation analysis? Do you need a certification?
No, you could be a civil engineer, you could be a planner, a planner for hire. This is someone who's working for the applicant. Most likely an applicant themselves will not prepare it. They'll hire someone to do it. There are environmental firms in Massachusetts that do this kind of work. Planning firms. Often civil engineering firms will have a civil engineering or planning department that might be asked to do this.
So there's no official certification for this analysis.
Nope.
So, and as to whether it happens or not on behalf of the town, on behalf of the entire town, it's discretionary. Is that correct?
The conservation analysis has to be completed by the applicant. That's the applicant's responsibility. And then,
But in terms of an analysis that would be done using an expert or a consultant hired by the town at the developer's expense, that's discretionary, correct?
yes, you can do it if you feel you need it.
Patrick, you've had your hand up for about 15 minutes. What, do you still have a question?
Yes. Look, it seems some of the touch points just in listening to these conversations have to do with density and have to do with cluster versus like conventional 2 and 4 acre zoning. And look at, we have 3 examples of cluster in town. We have Pine Woods, we have Heaton Court, we have White Pines. White Pines is about 100 acres with 53 units. I think it's beautiful. On the other hand, if you look at Lenox Heights on the Pittsfield Lenox Road, that's cluster that I think is ugly. Unfortunately, some of the decisions about whether these are good or not have to do with, one's personal opinion about the architect's work. I think that the step back here is this. The town did a survey of basically, to talk about senior housing, and 211 people talked about their thoughts, including on whether or not they thought they might need to downsize. I think that the really, really salient points here are that the town has a desperate need for like working class housing for teachers and for police officers. The police officer, Daryl told me, has been looking for a house for a year. We also have a need at some point, unless we're gonna have a mass migration out of this town, some percentage of the 800 or 900 or so seniors we currently have are gonna need to downsize. And rather than kind of, frankly, I don't know if this is gonna meet our needs. I mean, we've got, could you build another Heaton Court with this proposal? I think the answer is no. Could you build a White Pines with this proposal? I think the answer is no. And I wonder if rather than looking at the 20 acres as the trigger, you might start as a compromise with saying, what does the town need? It needs entry level and working class housing, and it needs maybe an ability for seniors to downsize their housing, and use the density to create incentives for developers to build the kind of housing we need. Because otherwise, as Jeff has pointed out many times in the past, they're going to be drawn to building luxury housing. And I think the last thing that the Berkshires needs, or Stockbridge needs for that matter, is more Miravals or more luxury condos. What we need is places for people to retire into who are currently here, and places for people to raise a family in if they want to live here. And I guess I just think, let's solve the problems we have rather than argue over these what ifs. You know, there's no shortage of millionaires, you know, figuring out ways to build gorgeous multi-million-dollar properties around the lake and elsewhere. Our boards deal with them all the time. How about we focus on the other class of people that really do need our help as a town in figuring out how to stay here or move here? That's all I got.
Thank you.
Patrick, can I just respond to that quickly?
Sure.
I do agree, and at least one other of my towns that I'm working with is thinking along the same lines. What they've seriously considered, I think it's in the draft that they have, I'm not sure if it's in this one, is instead of units that are available, it's bedrooms. And that gives developers the ability to build a certain number of bedrooms rather than a certain number of units. If they build units, they're going to be big, and they're going to be McMansions probably in Stockbridge. If they can build bedrooms, they might be able to build more units. Instead of a 4 or 5 bedroom house, they could build a 2 and a 3, or maybe 2.
Jeff, is it legal? What if we said, whether it's bedrooms or square feet, could we create density incentives so that if the unit was 1,500 square feet or smaller, or below the median house price in town, which is about 5.25, could we create development incentives so that if people were to build units of a small size at a price point that was affordable, they could build more? Because otherwise, I think that, like you're saying, they're just going to build the luxury housing.
Normally those appear in here as density bonuses. I think early on you folks took out all the density bonuses. They were for various things that towns seem to want, like public access or more open space, or the creation of affordable housing. You guys took all those out earlier. We can build them back in if you're interested in there being, but it has to be as an incentive, as a density bonus,
Right.
Something that's attractive to a landowner or a developer, makes it worth their while to do and to take advantage of. It's not something you can just require. You can't write in here that the houses have to be under a certain amount of money, or they can't be over 2 bedrooms. You can't do that. Yet you can put in incentives though.
Right.
And I have language for that.
I just think you guys should look at Heaton Court and look at White Pines and figure out how we create incentives to build. If you're going to experiment with cluster, you know, make it so that it's worthwhile for people to solve the problems we have.
I would also look at Oronoque.
Those places aren't cheap.
Heaton Court is, so is
Heaton
Heaton
Court
Court
is,
based
so-
on income?
And so's Pine Woods.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, like, Bill, when I say Oronoque, I mean, I guess I don't know what they go for, but just
A lot.
the
I
way.
bet you it's more than, I bet you it's higher than the town medium that Patrick just quoted.
No, but we can get, if you guys can make incentives for density, we can invite Habitat for Humanity to come in and build houses at half the cost of normal construction. I mean, there's other solutions we have. We also have a number of wealthy folks in this town, a few of which have approached the town of helping us build this sort of housing because they see it as a moral and, you know, imperative. I mean, we might have some options if we were all working together to look at these things, to sort of finance them creatively, build them creatively, and offer them creatively. I just don't think you're going to do it with density negative, density neutral. We're asking the wrong questions, in my opinion.
I think at one of our previous meetings, we did talk about reinserting a density bonus for affordable housing. Jeff is right. We took them out, and then somehow the question of affordable housing came up, and we decided, well, everybody likes affordable housing. Why don't we put that back in? And I think that's what we, you know, there was a kind of consensus on that. And maybe that's a partial solution to Patrick's proposal.
Yeah, there's affordable housing, and then there's housing that's affordable. Affordable housing is a defined term in Massachusetts, and it has to do with Chapter 40B, comprehensive permits, and your subsidized housing inventory in town. I don't know how familiar you folks are with all those things, but affordable housing needs to be affordable to those earning 80% of the area median income. And in order to do it correctly, to get on your subsidized housing inventory, it's, all the houses are sold by lottery. There are many, it has to be subsidized. There are a lot of strings that go along with that. If you're talking about what's known as sort of workforce housing, for people earning more than 80% of the area median income, perhaps not counting on your subsidized housing inventory, then you can write it that way. So
that's what I was talking about, Jeff, is workforce housing, and really that's very similar to the housing that someone with a 5,000 square foot house who's a widow who might want to downsize into something that was more condo-like might be looking for too.
Yep.
Okay, point noted, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I guess the reason I brought up Roanoke, Jeff, is because it's of course different from DeSisto, but it's similar in that it has an old property that was converted to condominiums. And it seemed like that could be a possibility for the DeSisto property, that it's pretty dilapidated and it maybe needs to be condemned, but that structure itself could be a possibility for senior or affordable housing.
okay.
Patrick, are you there? Oh, he's gone off to feed the dog.
So just a side note, I am hoping to get to Stockbridge during leaf peeping season.
Sorry, Kate, I stepped away.
Yeah, in October sometime, and perhaps you folks could put together. You don't have to guide me or anything, but just a list.
Oh no, it'd be great to take
great
you on
idea.
a little bit of a little bit of a tour. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still tied up except for weekends in October, but if it's during the week, I'm sure other people would be happy to show you around. I think it's very instructive actually looking at the town. We did this, ages ago with historic preservation. It's funny to say, but I mean, I took the fellow that came out from Boston for historic for the historic commission there, and I just drove around town. It was eye-opening actually.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. We'd love to have you, Jeff. So give us some dates and we'll organize it.
Okay, yeah, because if Kate says Roanoke, well, then I want to see Roanoke.
Yeah.
Also Elm Court. There's a whole list that I think you should definitely see.
Elm Court.
Well, the whole town is a bit of a miracle, and and we're I think we're all we're all here because we want to keep it that way. So
Exactly.
but it's really interesting to see. I mean, there's been a lot of things that have worked out very well for Stockbridge, over the years.
Okay, shall we move along?
Why don't we just go down and unless people have specific things, then we can just go over what I changed. I think this is just a word change from adequate to comparable. Talking about if there's a waiver, it has to provide comparable protection, not adequate, but comparable protection.
What section are you in?
It's in waivers. It's,
Section
First
B.
page,
yeah,
6.24.1D.
Got it. Thank you.
yeah. So we just strengthened that a little bit. Again, this is all in response to comments that you folks made when you went through it. So. I'm just roll for, oh. Okay, there's a comment here, consolidated special permits. I had a note, is there a role for select board? Why did I write that?
Because we talked about it.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I did put select board in a number of places, here in particular. You know, in the very beginning, when the applicant is strongly encouraged to meet with the planning board, it just said planning board and conservation commission, and so we bring in the select board early here.
Yeah, that was really a request from the chairman of the select board.
Other people agree with that though as well.
Sorry.
I agreed with that
Yeah,
suggestion.
I think most people did agree with that. Although I think it makes for an awfully large crowd and could be intimidating to an applicant, but they want to be involved, so they can be
Here-
involved.
Okay, I've just never noticed that.
Better they be intimidated up front rather than later. So-
Well, you
So
don't want to
who-
drive them, you don't want to drive a decent development away.
Mm.
Developers are not known for their thin skin.
So here again in C, when the planning board is sort of making its findings, including the select board, I think we took out historic district commission and added.
Because there isn't one. Yeah. No, that's correct. I think. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so it's historic preservation commission.
Is it commission or committee, Carl?
I think we're a commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question, is this gonna apply to cottage era? Is the plan to incorporate cottage era into this?
It's a possibility. At one point, I had cottage era at the tail end of this. But then we took it off. We took it off. Cottage era has been separate. It's been at the tail end of this, part of this, and now it's separate again.
Yeah,
Well,
I
now it's
think
right
that-
in the very beginning. It's right in the very beginning of that first paragraph. Conservation of historic estates and large properties.
My point is simply that I would much rather ensure that the Conservation Commission has a say in, if this bylaw is primarily focused on conservation and placement of the building area, then conservation is in my mind the group that we want to make sure that is included. When you start talking about cottage era, where there was the ability for additional uses, many additional uses in the current cottage era bylaw, I think it's much more important that, and I think frankly, it will be much more difficult for this to pass if it's not a special permit and it's not driven by the select board. I think that the NHRPZ, I could easily see it being a bylaw that planning and with conservation's help and historic preservation's help figures out. I think you're hurting your chances if on cottage era, where there's so few properties left and the current bylaw really meets the need, in terms of like giving folks additional options that they don't currently have with other parcels. I don't think there's going to be a lot of appetite for, multiple uses all over town, but there might be on 37 Interlaken or, Marion or whoever, where there's a limited number of properties.
Well, right now, a cottage era is not, not a part of this. It's still, we have a draft that we worked on quite a bit. At one point, it was appended to the end of this, and the last thing that happened was it came off, and it's still sitting out there. I think it's still a good bylaw, but we stopped working on it and then started just concentrating on this minus the CEE.
Except that then we included it again, which we waffled back and forth at least 3 different times on this.
You can take it out of the purposes if you want.
No, I'm not saying, one thing or the other, Jeff. I'm just saying we have had it in, then out, and then it's in again. And we have, nobody even knows where we're at this point.
Wayne, I wouldn't say it's in again. I mean, there is a reference to it on the last page.
But we specifically, I think I don't know how many meetings ago, we said, do we want to include this as part of this discussion, having it in this bylaw? And we said, yes, we want it to be included in this bylaw.
I think there are some efficiencies to doing it that way.
There isn't full agreement on that. And I,
Yeah,
Jeff, that you had recommended it once that it really should be separate. My feeling is that this is just way too much to tack it on the cottage era state bylaw.
Well, okay. It's not in here now. I think the board should consider either putting it in this bylaw or linking it to this bylaw. Because if you do, you get the open space protection. These are all large parcels, these cottage era estates. These are sizable parcels from what you told me. So you get open space protection. I didn't see any of that in the DeSisto proposal. I just saw more developable land behind.
But Jeff, we could make that part of the special permit on a cottage era bylaw where they want to add restaurants and hotels and other uses. Clearly you've educated the town as to the benefits of open space. There's no reason why it could not be part of a special permit requirement that whichever the, permitting board put in place.
I'm sorry, I'm getting an incoming call here, so I'm just going to let it ring and answer it later.
Maybe we should winding the meeting down at 8:30.
yeah, it's almost 8:30. We're clearly not going to get through this, get much further on this tonight.
Okay, just one last thing about CEE. It doesn't have to be a part of this. What you could do is you could take the things in here that you may like, that we've ironed out for this one, and you could incorporate them into CEE as a separate bylaw. Open space protection, perhaps a conservation analysis of a property, something like that. And you can have it run entirely separately. It's really, sorry, my sister's trying to get a hold of me here.
Sisters rule.
Well, she's taking care of my mother, so.
Why don't we wind this up, Jeff? Thank you for your time. And we'll reconvene perhaps at our next meeting. Our next meeting is October 5th.
Yeah.
And by then, at least Kate and Carl will have done your wandering through the hills of Wendell and Shutesbury and
Okay,
looking
well,
at those properties. And we can talk about it then, and as well as, resume our discussion of this draft. I think we've made some progress. These reviews of drafts are real challenges, but we got through draft 6. I'm sure we'll get through draft 7. And I'm not going to predict how many drafts we're going to have by the time we vote on it, but it's going to be more than draft 8, I'm sure.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the field visit, and the landowners are all going to be present and
Good.
and able to speak to.
Well, thank you for organizing that, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for organizing the visit for Carl and me. We appreciate it. And I make a motion that we adjourn.
There a second? I second.
Okay.
Jennifer, can you?
You don't want this to go on.
Yeah, everybody raise their hand and we'll call it a day.
Aye.
I
Aye.
take-
Thank you all. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.